36 seconds, a vehicle is stolen in the United States. Cars are an important investment, and you have the power to protect it. Remove valuables from your car or place out of view. Roll up your windows completely. Don't leave your car running while unattended, especially during the winter. And always lock your doors and take your keys or fob with you. If you know something about a vehicle theft, call us at 1-800-TEL-NICB.
This is a public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Hi everybody, welcome to Oxford Community Television. I'm Terry Stiles, and this is a special edition of our Community Access because I'm here with a special lady. It's Judge Laura Polizzi, and she was first an attorney, now she's a judge appointed in May to cover one of the positions that needed to be filled at the 52nd 3rd District. Yes. And that's a huge district.
It is a huge district. Thank you so much, Terry.
I can't even believe, you showed me all the communities that are in that district, and I'll roll them on graphics. We don't even have to go through that. But first, let's talk about your attorneyship. You started out as an attorney. Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, so I started out as an attorney. So I was born in Rochester, actually at Crittenton, if we want to go all the way back. And then I started school in Rochester schools. I went to elementary school in Rochester. I went to junior high in Rochester. And thereafter, I did move for high school, but I came back. I went to Oakland University in our district, as well as I went to Cooley Law School in Auburn Hills in our district.
Oh, wow.
So that was my schooling. And then after law school, I started my own practice.
On your own, right off the bat?
Yes.
So you had to have done an internship. What was that like?
I did a few internships, and they were wonderful. I had really wonderful mentors.
Did that influence the kind of practice that you had? What was your practice? It was family, or how?
My practice was pretty diverse. I did a lot of family law. I did a lot of district court criminal work. I did a lot of district court work, which is great because I'm a district court judge now.
That works out good.
Yeah, it works out well. I also had a very robust family law practice, doing a lot of divorces, custody, all of those matters, including juvenile law.
Wow.
I did a lot of juvenile law. It was very rewarding. I was appointed to a certain position where I was the only attorney to hear juvenile human trafficking cases or represent those juveniles. I'm sorry, not hear them, but so I represented those individuals who were human trafficked, but then subsequently charged with a crime as a result of their trafficking. And it was very rewarding to provide these young people services that they need and to get them to the right services to make sure that they got rehabilitation for what they had gone through. So
that had to be heart-wrenching.
It was, but it was rewarding just being able to bridge that gap and be that person to help get them to the right resources. I also did, like I said, a lot of family law cases. I also did some civil work as well. So every case that is in front of a district court judge, I have done. So it has really helped having a well-rounded background in law.
Right, so you didn't go out in there blinded. I want to talk about how you become a judge from an attorney, but first, you obviously have a servant heart. Where does that come from?
Well, my family's always been very involved in the community and in giving back. So that's the mindset I grew up with.
What made you want to go into law?
Well,
besides the servant heart, obviously.
Thank you. My background was, I went and I got my bachelor's degree from Oakland University in international relations. And I also speak Spanish, a little bit of Italian, because of my family background. Well, what ended up inspiring me was I got that degree and I decided I didn't want to go move out of Michigan. I wanted to stay in Michigan. I wanted to stay close to my family. I have a really good relationship with my family. And I thought, well, the best course for me is to go to law school and become an attorney. I think being an attorney is wonderful. You get to help so many people. You get to help your clients one-on-one. Usually when people hire an attorney, it's because they're going through the worst time of their life.
Sure.
And they really need your help and your guidance. So it's a very important job, and you know, people are hiring you, they're putting their trust in you.
Yeah, right, no kidding.
Yeah.
And have a successful goal.
Yes.
How did you choose what type of attorney you wanted to be?
Well, my practice was really diverse, so I didn't necessarily have one. I knew that I wanted to run my own business. I knew that I didn't want to work for a firm. I wanted to run my own business because I wanted to be able to help the people I wanted and take the cases I wanted, the cases that were meaningful to me. You know, like the juvenile human trafficking court, that wasn't for monetary gain.
Right.
That was for community outreach and being an advocate for these young people. So I think, you know, having my own practice allowed me to do the types of cases I wanted to do, and if somebody walked through the door and I wasn't the one for them, I would send them to somebody else.
Wow, that had to be hard as well. So the business end of it, I mean, obviously you knew what you were doing legally, but how do you develop that business sense? Did that come from a family background, or is that something that you also had to learn on your own?
I also had to learn that
Trial
on
and
my
error.
own. So speaking of learning on my own, I was the first person in my family, in my immediate family, to get a bachelor's degree. So
Congrats.
thank you. So I had to really figure things out on my own, and my family has been so wonderful and so supportive, and without them I couldn't have done anything that I did. So they really have been my inspiration all along. But I was the first person to get a bachelor's degree. I was the first person to go to law school. I didn't know any lawyers, so I was just figuring things out on my own. And the same thing with owning a business. I was figuring that out on my own.
And then, so you belonged to, I read a little bit about your background. You belonged to many organizations along the way. What steps did you take? How did that happen? What organizations did you belong to?
Well, I think you kind of fall into certain things and you find where you fit, right? So I fit in really well with the Women Lawyers Association of the state of Michigan, and I'm on their state board right now. They are an incredible organization, and I have met so many amazing women who are excellent leaders in the community through that organization. So I've been involved in that organization since I was a very young attorney, as well as many different bar associations. Of course, the Italian American Bar, I've been a member of that, you know, since very early on in my career. You know, so I really have enjoyed the communities that I've been a part of, as well as the organizations I've been a part of, and the amount of wonderful people it's led me to meet.
And mentors, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So did you have a partner in your practice? And I keep saying did and was. We'll talk about that in a minute, that you're not practicing right now. But
Yes.
did you have a partner to help you along the way?
I did. So I partnered with my partner, Angela Medley. She and I partnered up in 2018. And when I was appointed to the bench in May, you know, she took over the practice.
Did it take you long to decide that? And did you have to have a lot of conversations with anybody to do that?
Well, I had a lot of conversations with my partner about whether or not I was going to get the position and what our plan would be.
Wow.
And then it all happened. So we made it work.
Quickly.
Yeah,
That
quickly.
started in May, and here we are, August, and
Yes.
you've been on the bench for a while, and we'll talk about that transition when we come back. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player and proud supporter of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. My mom was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 14, and I watched her struggle. But MDA helped her get the best treatments and care, and they also help kids like my buddy Ethan.
My name is Ethan. Thanks to the Muscular Dystrophy Association and people like you, I have more hope than ever before. From day one, they've treated me like family at my local care center. MDA is the only one that funds over 150 care centers across the U.S. to help provide state-of-the-art care for adults and kids like me.
MDA has been transforming the lives of people living with muscular dystrophy, ALS, ALS, and other related neuromuscular diseases. They fund the research for breakthrough treatments, care, and cures. And MDA provides support to thousands of families like mine and Ethan's in communities like yours. Thanks to MDA, kids and adults can live life to its fullest. Join us and learn more at mda.org today.
Welcome back to Our Community Access, a special edition, and I am with Judge Laura Polizzi. I'm so grateful that you could take the time. I know you're a busy lady. Prior to you being on the judge, I'm going to go backwards just a little bit,
of course,
being a
no
judge. What was the most challenging thing in your practice, number one, when you had your practice?
That is a great question.
The hardest.
Well, I think the hardest thing about law practice is wearing those two hats, is being the attorney and then also being the person who manages the business. And as long as you have that balance, you do well. But sometimes it can fall out of balance for a day or so, and you got to focus on one more than the other, and then get things back on track.
To readjust yourself. Yeah. With such a successful practice that you had, was it hard giving that up and going over to the bench? And what was the hardest thing about that?
I wouldn't say it was a difficult transition. It was very easy thanks to my partner and the conversations that we had to set up a process for that. So we had a process in place to be able to do that.
And then why do that?
Well, that is a good question. And the reason why I wanted to become a judge, my why, is a very personal, very important thing to me. So I had practiced a lot of district court cases, and I've done a lot of district court work. And, you know, the thing is that district court is usually the place where people start, right? Start getting in trouble.
Right.
People usually start with misdemeanors or little things. Well, that ends up in the district court. So most of the time, people end up there first. It's the people's court, right?
Right.
So it's to me a very meaningful place to work. With that, I think as an attorney, you have the opportunity to impact one individual at a time, and that individual is the person you represent. But I think as a judge, you have the ability to impact many people at a time. You have the ability to impact a community. And I think that that's
Brilliant.
very unique, and it's very impactful to a society. If you choose to do good with that role, you can do a lot of good. So a story that I'd like to tell you is that my brother was an Iraq War veteran, and he came home. He was injured from the war. He had, many things that went wrong. He was around bombs and he was in the field. He came home with injuries. He needed medication. He needed pain medication, and rightfully so. He was prescribed those medications, and unfortunately, like many people, he developed an addiction to them.
Sure.
He did well. He had help. Things progressed, and ultimately there was a relapse. And my brother passed away 7 years ago of opiate addiction. And the thing about that is that story impacts so many people in our community.
Sure does.
Whether or not that's how their story ends, there's so much of that the district court sees, and it's those little misdemeanor cases where somebody's taking their parents' prescription, or somebody's taking a different family member's prescription, or it's a war veteran who's prescribed something rightfully, and things go wrong. And what do we do when they go wrong? And how do we get back up after things go wrong? So I think it's really important to have that insight. So I bring that to the bench. I represented my brother in several district court cases, and there was a gap in resources for him.
That would have been my next question. Yeah.
So I started a Veterans Treatment Court, and it's the first one that we've had in the 52-3 District Court. So it's really important to me. I think it'll be very impactful for our community, and I have a real soft spot for veterans. You know, I think they come home with so much mental baggage. They come home with so much that they've been through.
The PTSD.
Yes, and it's
silent.
It can happen where they're getting in trouble, but what they need is some of that structure back in their lives and somebody to say, okay, what is the problem? What brought you to court? Now let's figure out how we can fix that so that we can get you functioning back into society.
So what does the Veterans Court mean?
So the Veterans Court allows veterans into a program that allows them, it's more rigid.
A recovery kind of program?
Well, it's a program where you work with the court to see what resources do you require.
Got it.
Okay. So it depends on if they're an alcoholic or if they're a drug addict or maybe they just need mental health services. So you get them the services they need. And if they're compliant with all of their requirements, they have the opportunity to get that charge off of their record so that it doesn't even stay on their record. So it's an opportunity for a clean slate, even though they've made a mistake.
Sure.
So that Veterans Treatment Court is going to be great for our community.
I love hearing that these men and women are recognized with special problems, you know, or special cases. There's special cases, and I'm sure every case is.
Yeah, every case deserves your attention, and every case deserves a fresh set of eyes. And the most important thing is listening to people, and not just judging them based upon what they look like. It's why are you here? What brought you here? What can we do to help you so that you don't come back? Because as a society, what good is a court system if we're not keeping people out of it? You know, we don't. The goal of the court should be to process these individuals, but also provide them services so that they're not continuing to do the same things over and over again.
So the court has the resources, the networking ability that some people may not have then. Correct?
Because part of a judge's sentence is going to be how can we help this person learn what they did was wrong, and sometimes that's rehabilitation.
What is it that you can see with the court system now being on this side of it that might need some work?
I think we can do more community outreach programs like that. Judges are not as always so forward-facing as other people because our positions are unique. We are nonpartisan. Our goals are different. We are not like other candidates, let's say.
Sure.
So I think that putting more programs in place that help the community is powerful.
Agreed. And I want to talk a little bit more about that and who you must work with or have to work with in order to get those systems in place. And we'll do that when we come back. Don't go away. We will be right back.
The climate that we're operating under has everyone on the defensive.
You see a person and you automatically put them in a box and say, well, this is what this person should be like.
All of this ostracizing people, what are we afraid of?
We're called to love one another. It can't be, I reject you as a person.
This country's been through so much. Its people has been through so much. Why can't we fix this?
Do we have issues we have to deal with? Yes, we do. But we're not going to be able to deal with them if we're fighting and yelling at each other and not listening.
Yeah, she has an accent. Oh gosh, she dressed funny, but we're talking the same thing. We're all concerned about our children, concerned about the world we live in.
A lot of people wouldn't even think we should be here talking to each other, but I'm sorry, I disagree.
Welcome back to Oxford Community Television, our Community Access, a very special edition, because I have a very special lady here, Laura Polizzi, Judge Laura Polizzi. Thank you for joining us. I'm telling you, I have all these questions swimming around in my head. We were talking about creating programs to help people like the veterans. So how do you network to create that program? Do you talk to therapists, or I don't know, there's parole officers. Do you work all together with them? How do you create a program like that?
So these programs exist in other courts, and it's a matter of finding a community need for it and then bringing that program to our court. So there was a veterans treatment court at another court, and we use what they've already have, you know.
Gosh. And that does it incorporate therapy and PTSD treatments, etc.?
It incorporates whatever we sentence them to, whatever those needs are. So if that specific veteran, let's say, got a DUI, well, then we address the needs. Is that person, do they have a drinking problem? Okay. Do they need AA? Do they need individual therapy? Do they need inpatient treatment? I mean, how severe is this? So we kind of go through and look at what are the needs of that individual. What is the testing frequency we should have them testing at? You know, there's different things. You don't want to go overboard with somebody because then it could be discouraging. You don't want to go too little with somebody because then, it could ramp up their problem and maybe then they don't have enough help. So every case is different.
So that brings me to, how do you learn to be a judge? What a responsibility you have. I'm telling you, I'm impressed.
Thank you. Well, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of practice. So I practiced and I did this type of work for a long time, and that has helped me in my transition to becoming a judge.
Being on the other side of it and knowing what your client needed.
Yes, and thankfully I practiced in front of many judges who were wonderful, and you can see the judges that really cared for their community and really cared about the impact they were making on each person that came before them, and that's who I wanted to be like. So I don't take this job lightly. I think it's very important, and I am honored to be in this position.
And that's a position that you were appointed, but then does it every 4 years? Do you have to run for it? How do you maintain?
So judges,
I know judges have been in that seat.
Yes.
Zarniak, is that how you say
Karniak,
that? Karniak has been there forever.
She's wonderful, and Lisa Azadorian is wonderful too.
Yes, Azadorian.
So those are my two benchmates, and they are fantastic human beings, both of them.
Yes.
Well, judges are on terms. The terms are 6 years in length.
Oh, okay.
My term, I have to run. Actually, I'm running right now to hold my seat, and I'm in the election for November 5th. So
you
everybody
literally hit the ground running.
I did, and I'm very proud that I hit the ground running. And in the first few months of my time on the bench, I started a veterans treatment court, and it's starting this month. So I'm really excited about the work that I'm able to do there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, good for you. I think that you need to be there for quite a while.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate
what
that.
is your goal there? What if, say, your term ended in 6 years? What would you have hoped to accomplish in that 6 years?
Well, I wanted to get a veterans treatment court. Usually it takes longer than a few months, but I think somebody upstairs must have been helping me, thank God. And I really want to get that going. I really want to get people into that court and be able to help that gap in the community. I also just want to impact the community in a positive way. And the way that you do that as a judge is being fair and listening and being kind to every individual that comes before you.
Right.
Having that patience.
You have to have psychology background, you have to have that networking background, which you do, which is really great. What's the hardest thing about judging? And I'm using that term very loosely because I know there's more than you just sitting there judging that person. I know more goes into it, but what's the hardest thing about your job in a day?
Well, I think the difficult thing is when you have sentenced someone and they are on probation and then they come back to you. And I had one woman who I sentenced on an operating while intoxicated, and she came back and she showed up to court drunk.
Oh gosh, poor thing.
And then you realize that even though the last court hearing they told you, well, I don't have a problem, then you realize they do. And they don't know how to fix it. And that problem sometimes is so difficult for people to recognize or for them to remedy on their own.
Sure.
So then it becomes that part where you get programs in place for that person to help them work on identifying the problem, fixing it. Because what we want is for that person to be a functioning member of society.
Sure.
I mean, they have a family, they have a job, they have children, they have dogs or you know,
Rent
pets,
to pay.
Rent to pay.
Sure.
So if they are incarcerated, they can't pay their bills. They can't, you know, be involved in their children's lives. You know, there's so many things that happen as a domino effect in somebody's life when they come to court, and I'm very aware of that from my personal experiences with my brother or just with my clients.
Well, and everybody knows somebody that's had that struggle.
Absolutely, and nobody's better than anybody, and I think that's such an important thing for us to realize as a community. Nobody's better than anybody. If it could happen to you, it can happen to you or somebody you love. So there's never a situation where somebody comes in front of me and I am judging that person in a negative way. It's always, okay, let's look, how can we help this individual? Because it could be anybody.
Yeah,
could be anybody in any one of our families.
Your aunt, your grandma, So do you have advice for people that say are experiencing the system for the first time? What would you tell a client if they were in minor trouble or even a ticket or something more serious like a DUI?
I think having an attorney, get an attorney is a wonderful start. The court process is complex. Dealing with the law is very intimidating for people. Having an attorney can really ease that process. But my overall advice is, if you're coming to court, just be honest. Just be honest and listen to what's happening around you. But that honesty can go much farther than lying and then coming back on a violation because you lied. It's harder on you, and it's harder on everybody who's in the courtroom. So just that honest behavior goes a long way.
So just lead us through what a district court is for. Just real quickly, I won't have you read who you're representing, but is it for minor infractions?
So district court deals with misdemeanors. We process misdemeanors through the whole case, which is any case that is a criminal case where the sentence is up to 1 year maximum.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
1 year maximum in jail.
Okay.
We also process the beginning of felony cases that then get sent up to circuit court.
Based on your recommendation.
Correct. Okay. Or based upon the choice of the defendant and their attorney.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they bind over the case to circuit court on their own decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So we get the beginning of those cases. We also get civil cases in the amount of $25,000 in controversy or below.
Oh,
so a lot of the local business cases or, civil cases in the community. We also do all the landlord-tenant cases.
Oh, okay.
And civil infractions and traffic.
Okay.
Although most of the traffic and civil infractions go to the magistrates. The magistrates also do the fun part, which is the weddings.
Oh, yeah.
They do the fun part, the weddings, unless we're specifically requested, then we can do the weddings as well.
I'll tell people to request you.
I would love that. I would love that.
We'll put you up there for that.
Yeah.
Well, I so appreciate your educating us today and you taking the time to come in. I know it's been a long day for you.
Yes, well, I really appreciate you guys having me and being able to tell my story and share why I wanted this position. And it's very meaningful to me to have this position within the community. And I look forward to giving back.
Well, we're glad to meet you.
Thank you.
And I hope we don't have to see you in court, but back here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Let's all give her a hand.
This is a fish, a clownfish actually. He lives in a reef like this, in an ocean like this. This ocean contains these currents. These currents help carry fishing boats like these. Fishing boats like these bring their catch to port. Their catch is loaded onto this truck and delivered to this restaurant. This restaurant serves dinner to this family. This family drives back to their home. Their home borders this forest. This forest surrounds this creek. This creek trickles into this river down to these mangroves. These mangroves buffer the coastline from this bay. This bay is a hunting ground for this shark. This shark swims out to this ocean. This ocean flows over this reef. This reef is home to this fish. This is a fish, a clownfish actually.